Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a special 3 News baseball discussion. I'm Tyler Carey, and I am joined by the pride of Solon, Ohio, although I believe he's living in my hometown of Twinsburg now. Nick Camino is with us. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time today to sit down and talk.
Tyler, it is great to be with you from here in our home. We're in the basement. I don't know if you can see the TP in the background. So this is where we're at, scattered toys. But I know you're living in Little Italy, which I'd like to trade places because I could go for a bite to eat right now.
Hey, I'm not willing to trip. Look, I love Twinsburg. Trust me. I stand my hometown, but there's no way I'm trading this location for anything, especially with all the restaurants and my parish just a short walk away from me. But I appreciate the offer. I understand. We're more than happy to welcome you into the fold someday. But no, you're not taking this spot.
I like it. I like it.
Now, Nick, the last time I talked to you was, I believe, after game via Zoom. We've talked since, but the last time I talked to you via Zoom was, I believe, right after Game 2 of the Wild Card Series when the Indians lost a heartbreaker to the Yankees. I mentioned it felt like there was a finality to it. A lot has changed with the ball club since then on the field. There's also going to be a major change on it, but also more so off of it, and that is, of course, the name Indians will be dropped as soon as next season, possibly by 2023. But Paul Dolan, the owner, has confirmed the name is being changed after more than 100 years. Just your thoughts on that? I think it was kind of expected by the time it came down. What did you think when they finally made the announcement that, yes, we're going to do away with the name Indians?
Well, Tyler, I think it's time. And not to get into the controversy of it. I just thought, especially when the decision was made and they said, okay, we're going to do away with Chief Wahoo. The Block C is going to become our primary logo. And then you started to really see things start to change. The uniforms kind of look different. It didn't really look like there was any sort of logo of sorts. There was the C, but there really wasn't much different. I remember, before I joined WKYC, I was doing talk radio. And I remember being on the air after a post game, after an Indians game. And I think they had lost. So we just started talking about different things. And we talked about the name. And I said, now that Chief Wahoo is gone, it's going to only be a matter of time before the name changes. And people went crazy. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, they'll always be the Indians. And I said, well, wait a minute. This was something that, it seems like it's time. We know that there's been protests over it for years. There's been discussions over it for years. I said, now that you got rid of Chief Wahoo, it's only a matter of time before the name is changed. And people thought I was crazy. So I do find it interesting. Not that I was, trying to, say that I was right at the time or anything, but I just felt like this time was coming. And now that we're here, rather than argue about it, I'd say let's get excited for the newest chapter.
No, I'm with you. And look, had you asked me about them changing the name 3-4 years ago, I might have had a very different answer. But to be honest with you, Nick, I was just so tired of the debate around it. Just every year, are they going to change the name? Should they change the name? Should they get rid of Wahoo? And it's like, I just want to talk about baseball. I want to talk about the product on the field. This is such a distraction. And we saw this past summer with the summer of protests and everything. Paul Dolan had previously said, even after they dropped the Wahoo logo, we are keeping the name and the commissioner supports us in that. Now you can believe or not believe that, but I think it had just become such a hot button issue. I think other writers had mentioned this. I think he and others in the organization were just done. And they just decided, you know what, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's find something new. Let's start a new chapter. We're not gonna deny our history that those teams from 1915 to 2021 or whatever are going to be known as the Cleveland Indians. It's still going to be the 90s Indians teams, but it's just time, I think, to get what Paul Dolan said, something that's going to be more of a unifier than something that's going to bring protesters outside the gates every opening day.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. It feels like it's time. I think it's exciting to talk about new names and new logos. I'm a guy that loves jerseys and things like that. Maybe not as much as our friend Ben Axelrod, our co-worker. I know he's a big uni guy, but I like that stuff. I get a kick out of that stuff. I've seen some of the logos that have been out there surfacing on the internet, on Twitter and things like that. So this sort of thing excites me. It doesn't upset me. I can share personal conversations, Tyler, with you that I've had when I was covering spring training. I remember going to Talking Stick, which was a Native American reservation, talking to a Native American gentleman who had told me he had no problem with the name like that. I mean, depending on who you talk to, I remember, I think it was the Washington Post that put a poll out there that said nine in 10 Native Americans do not care. Now, someone would say, well, they have other important things to worry about. It's really not on their list.
Right.
So I do think, listen, we could argue all day, but at the end of the day, it's probably time for us, like you said, let's focus on the product on the field. Let's get into a new name. It's time to kind of start fresh. Hey, Tyler, the team starts fresh, it seems like, every single year. So why not go ahead with a new name? And it gives the organization an opportunity to sell some new merchandise, some new jerseys. And I think once it's done, I think you hit it on the head. Once you've ripped the Band-Aid off like they've already have, I think people will get behind it. And I think we'll have a lot of fun with it, regardless of which name they go with.
Absolutely. I think some people are upset, but at the end of the day, the people who end up, I'm never going to root for the team again, that number is going to be minuscule. It's going to be a drop in the bucket, if that. Just get it over with. Let's get it done and let's move forward. Now, you perfectly segued into our topic today, and that is, of course, what is the new name of Cleveland's baseball team going to be? Now, for those of you who have been on WKYC.com this past week, we had a poll up of 6 options that we felt were kind of based on what we were seeing in like the Vegas odds or on social media with the uniform designs, as you had mentioned. We felt that these were kind of the top 6 right now. Now, this is not definitive. This does not mean that the team is going to go with one of these names. They didn't give us these names, the team, of course not. This is just where we kind of see the lay of the land right now. Now, the 6
don't have any secret intel. None of these are like us. Okay.
But believe me, I wish I did, but I do not. So
well, your story, I know, has done very well, because I've had personal friends of mine and family members texting me saying, hey, I just voted on the poll. And I had to text you and I said, wait, which poll is this? And so I checked it out. You did a great job with it. It's got a lot of votes. It's got a lot of traction.
More than 21,000. And Nick, I appreciate that very much. And thank you to your friends and family who did take part in the poll. I had one of our friends who's not even really that into baseball just voted in the poll and was so passionate about what she believed should or shouldn't be the name. So it's certainly gotten people riled up. But of the 21,000 plus responses, the results are in.
Here we go.
Camino.
All right.
The number one choice among our viewers, 27.7%, would be the Cleveland Spiders.
Wow.
Now, that's kind of been the prohibitive favorite ever since we announced this change. Coming in second, this surprised me very much, 22.5%, Cleveland Rockers.
Really?
That I did not see coming at all.
Named after the WNBA basketball that was here.
The late, great Cleveland Rockers. And we're going to get into all these names in a second, but just to keep going through the poll here. Guardians, which has been another popular choice, Cleveland Guardians, came in a somewhat distant third, 19.8%, not too far back, but certainly a little bit further back than I would have expected. In fourth, now I only put this name in the poll because I wanted fans' perspectives on it, even though the team itself has kind of implied they're not going to go in this direction. 15.2% chose Cleveland Baseball Club. No name, just Cleveland, much like Washington did with the NFL. That was a very solid fourth. In fifth, the Cleveland Buckeyes at 7.6%. That, of course, the name of an old Negro League team that played in Cleveland back in the 40s and was very successful during that time. And bringing up the rear in sixth at 7.2%, I'm disappointed because I actually like this name, even though everyone thinks I'm nuts. Cleveland Municipals, bringing up the rear in dead last. So, Nick, your first impressions hearing those results, again, surprised that I'm surprised Municipals wasn't a little bit higher, but I get it. Spiders did not surprise me. That seems like, again, it's been the people's choice since they announced this change. I did not think Rockers would be sitting there at number 2.
Yeah.
I got to tell you.
Rockers to me was the big surprise because it always seems like, and maybe this is just like my circle of friends and yours maybe share this too, is like every time we talk about Cleveland hosting an all-star game or hosting, the draft, everyone always thinks the logo is going to include that guitar.
Oh, I know. Enough with the guitar, please.
I know it's always going to rock and roll this, right? It's like, okay, I get it. We're proud of that. But yeah, I am. That's why I'm very surprised about Rockers, because I think a lot of people kind of even poke fun at that sometimes.
I love that we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here in Cleveland. We at 3 News have a great relationship with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I am not disputing that. I love them very much. To me, it just like, could we get away from the Rock imagery? There's a lot of other things in this city where it's like, oh, Republican National Convention's here. We'll put a guitar on the logo. Women's Final Four, there's your guitar again. All-Star game, here's the guitar again.
Yeah.
Let's think outside the box here. And that's why I'm not bullish on it, but apparently more people than we expected wouldn't mind it.
As we say in Italian, abashta on the guitar now, okay? Abashta, all right? No more of that. The thing that doesn't surprise me, honestly, Tyler, is of the selections that you gave us, that Spiders is near the top, and in this case, it is at the top. But I thought it would be near the top because I feel like, just in what I've seen online and things like that, number one, outside of the University of Richmond, who plays in the Atlanta 10, I don't know which other team is called the Spiders.
Right.
And you look at some of the logos and things like that have surfaced online. I think you can do a lot with that. Now, I've heard one argument: the Cleveland Spiders were one of the worst baseball teams in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
They had bad success, but that was a long time ago, Tyler. Maybe that's a good fit. But in terms of the poll, I think everybody did well. I was just a little surprised by the Rockers.
Well, and you and me both, but with the Spiders, it almost seems like it's too easy because that has been, we've posted stories about the Vegas odds. That has been the runaway favorite from day one. And it's what you mentioned, the marketing, the fact that only Richmond's really the only team I can think of that has that name, Spiders. The history of it being here, of the team being here. Look, we can talk about the 1899 team going 20 and 134. Certainly not a stellar moment in our city sports history. And I actually wrote an article about this months ago that you can read on our website, again, wkyc.com. The history of the Spiders is actually a lot richer than you would think. Cy Young pitched for them, was very good for them, pitched most of his career here in Cleveland, had some other Hall of Fame players. They won in, I think, 1895, what was known as the Temple Cup, which was at the time like a World Series competition. Wow. So there is a history there. And the only reason they got bad was because the owners owned what would later become the St. Louis Cardinals and decided we would rather our good team be in St. Louis. Let's trade all the good players there and run Cleveland as a sideshow. And we know how that ended. But the only thing, again, I've had people talk to me. They don't necessarily, well, I'm not a fan of spiders. I have arachnophobia or something. There's also research you do. Apparently the fans back then in the 1890s were not big fans of the name. And names were a lot more fluid back then. When they found other things to call it, they were happy because they did not like spiders very much. But that was over 120 years ago. I feel like the populace now is a little bit different than back in the 19th century. And from what it seems, a lot of people, both in Cleveland and throughout the country, would be for this name and would be able to get behind it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of spiders myself. The actual, I don't have arachnophobia. I'm talking about an actual spider.
Yes.
I'm not. That's held me back a little bit on the name. But Tyler, and not to fall into one of my own pet peeves, even of the names you've mentioned, you did a great job on the poll and in the article and everything. Even the options that you gave, though, I still am not like totally gung ho on. I don't know why. And so you would say to me, well, what do you suggest? Well, that's one of my pet peeves is like when someone has a problem and they don't have a solution. That's what I'm falling into.
Yeah,
I'm not great about all the choices you have, but I don't have a better one right now. I thought maybe, down in Columbus, you've got the Blue Jackets, right? And that is an ode to the Civil War soldiers, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
I had thought, you have the Red Sox in Boston, you have the White Sox in Chicago. Maybe Cleveland is the Blue Sox, and it's an ode to.
That was another suggestion. We didn't go with that. The reason we went with these is because these were the ones that we kind of saw, again, with the odds makers, and you mentioned with the infrastructure on social media, with all of the accounts devoted to these names. Blue Sox did not make the cut, but it's something I've thought of too. However, again, people could almost go into that trap. Well, you've already got the Red Sox and White Sox. Why go with the Blue Sox there? There's something with every one of these names. And I'm with you. I haven't heard that one name where to me, it just clicks in my mind like, yes, that's it. That's what they should go with.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's because a lot of the other good names are already taken. Maybe it's because we're just so used to Indians after all these years that nothing measures up quite right at the moment. Yeah. But I mean, like, for example, like I'm not as bullish on spiders. I could live with it. We've already talked about rockers. I talked to a lot of people who love the name Guardians, which came in third because Guardians of Traffic and all that. Oh, the marketing you could do with Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just not feeling it. Like, no, I'm not going to be protesting if they name that the Guardian, if they name the team the Guardians, but I'm just like,
Here's the thing. I think logo-wise, you could do some cool things with Guardians. And I don't think the name is that bad. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you were to ask me, Nick, what's a Guardian? I don't know. I mean, I think of, like, Guardian Angel or something. You know, I don't know what's a Guardian.
I mean it's those big sculptures on the bridge on 71. Yeah. It's like, okay. Like, and again, I have no problem with those. And the name itself is fine. But to be honest with you, the name to me, look, I like the name Municipals, because it reminds me of the New York Metropolitans, and of course they're named the Mets. Now, what would you name us? The Munis, I guess. That would sound a little weird, but yeah. I would kind of be for that. A lot of people don't agree with me there. The one to me that I think would really work would be Cleveland Buckeyes, because of the history with the Negro League team and everything. But you know that there's an athletic department down in Columbus that would probably not be too keen on the Indians on this team adopting that name permanently.
Yeah. I was thinking, I threw something out a couple months ago where I was just trying to think of the most generic type of name, and this wouldn't work, but because I thought I was trying to think of what you could do with a logo and something that isn't offensive. And I was thinking Broncos, and then quickly I had Browns fans that were like, no, you can't do Broncos. They're cool. There were some cool logos with it, but I don't know.
I had thought about that too. Yeah.
Here's the one thing I'll say though. Like, so I know you have the White Sox and you have the Red Sox, but it's not like this is a franchise that was, created in 1998, like the Tampa Bay Rays. You know what I'm saying? Like, Cleveland, it has a baseball history to it. Mm-hmm. And you're in the North, where you could, have an ode to the Civil War North soldiers. So it's like I think to myself, well, okay, yes, is Chicago a historic baseball franchise and it's an old name with the White Sox? Of course. So is Boston with the Red Sox. Well, so is Cleveland. So I feel like, and you go with the Blue Sox, you don't have to change too much around the ballpark. You've got blue prevalent throughout. I mean, I think you can do a lot with it. But I guess if I have to pick one, that's it. I have to throw my friend Paul Hoynes under the bus. He said Cleveland Walleye. I thought that was absolutely terrible.
I bumped my screen for a second. I was so outraged. I bumped my table. I'm with you. That sounds to me, and I know we're in a different
minor league baseball.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it sounds so minor league. And look, I know we're about to have an NHL team called the Seattle Kraken, which I'm all for. I think that's kind of cool. But I know that it's a different era. But the Walleye, what are we doing here? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. And this would kind of be a little bit too close to Astros, maybe. And I think you'll like this. Early on, I thought of Cleveland Comets. I thought of the Comets and thought, okay, there's a lot you could do with that. And just the streaking stars and everything. It just sounds.
I like Cleveland Comets, obviously, because I'm a Solon Comet, so that would work.
Yes. And now, again, one of the options on here I mentioned was Cleveland Baseball Club. Now, we saw the Redskins in the NFL do that, where as a temporary solution, they have said they renamed themselves the Washington Football Team. And it's going to be that way for at least another season. However, they're talking about making that permanent. Again, Paul Dolan and others with the Indians organization have implied that that is not what they are going to do. They want an actual name. And that's why they didn't just rip the name off this year. They're still known as the Indians until a new name is chosen. But apparently, again, 15%, it's definitely not first, but that's a solid fourth place. It seems like enough fans would be open to it. Do you think it's something that the team would maybe reconsider? or is it something you would be open to? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm open to it. It's a good question. I think though the Washington football team has now said weren't they just waiting on like trademark attorneys and things like that?
They were waiting on that. That's one of the reasons why they did go with Washington football team. However, I do remember, and maybe they've changed course since, but I do remember at least at one point months ago, their team president saying Washington football team is under consideration for being the permanent name. I'm not saying it's going to be, it might not be. And yes, a lot of it is the trademark situation, but they're at least thinking about it. And I wonder, even though the Indians have implied they're not going to do that, could it at least be something they consider if enough fans get behind it?
Yeah, I mean, that I think it's something to consider. I just wish, if you have a name, though, you can kind of have a logo with it. The thing that the Indians, I think, have dealt with over the last couple of years is they really don't have that logo. They've got the C. But
once you dump Wahoo, you couldn't go with another Native American logo. You had to go with the C, which I would prefer the crooked C. They went with the block C, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So I would be open to that, but I think I would more lean toward a name, and it doesn't surprise me that you said the Indians have come out and saying that they would kind of want a name and a logo and things like that.
I'm with you. I want an actual brand. I just think this. Look, I know that's the way it is, and like Premier League and everything, Manchester United FC, and that's great. I just don't think it works here. The other thing too, okay, let's say you just named them the Cleveland Baseball Club. Okay, fine. I'm not going to stop rooting for them, but if you don't have an actual name, there's still going to be a lot of people just calling them the Indians or the Tribe or something. People are just going to fall into that trap. Like, well, you didn't give them a name, I'm going to call them the old name. And I think they're just, because they've already said they're not going to call them the Cleveland Tribe either, because they want to really break from that Native American imagery.
Yeah. Which, by the way, until I had heard that, I was open to Tribe. I said, well, you have William and Mary, which is in Virginia. They have the Tribe. Yes. I think Tribe would be cool. And then I think they quickly found out that wouldn't do either.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it would have sounded okay. I understand why they're not doing it, though. They want to make a clean break. And I do think if they went with Cleveland Baseball Club too, you wouldn't be able to make that clean break because you don't have an actual name. So fans will give it their own name. It's a complicated situation, Nick. And the owner has said, we have a list of names. We don't know what that list is. Now, he's implied one of the things is they've got to go through the trademark aspects of it. Okay, can we legally use this name? Do fans even like these names? We don't know when they're going to make this change. It could be, he did say it could be, an announcement could be at some point this summer. It could not be until 2023. Yeah. But there's so many, again, we only went over 6. And then you mentioned Blue Sox. I mentioned comics. Walleye is out there. Sorry, Paul, I think you don't have a lot of supporters there, Hoinsey. No, love you, Paul. But it's clearly, again, there's a lot to talk about, but I think you're right. We still haven't found that one name that we just all go, yes, that's it. And I'm not sure we ever will.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you do these types of things, there's always going to be people that like it. There's always going to be people that hate it. And hopefully you have something in the middle where everyone can enjoy. But I mean, no matter what they pick, even if it's the best possible selection, we're going to hear people barking about it, that they're unhappy. So that's just what happens in life.
Well, if this poll tells us anything, yes, the Spiders came in first. That's 27.7%. That's more than 70% of fans who want something else.
That's a great point.
This is not a consensus. And hopefully we do reach a consensus. Hopefully it's a name that we can all get behind. Look, I've said this. I only care that the name Cleveland is on the jersey. I'll root for them no matter what they're called. But there is a point to be made to making sure you have that right brand. And this is uncharted territory. I was looking at, for baseball at least, it's extremely rare that a team changes its name without changing cities. I mean, the Devil Rays went to the Rays a few years back, but that wasn't much of a change. You had the Houston Colt 45s became the Astros. I was back in the 60s. The Reds were the Redlegs, and then the Reds again. And that's going back decades and decades. And a lot of those franchises, either the name was not changed that much, or in the Rays case, they weren't an established franchise. This is a charter American League team that after 100 years is making a change. It's exciting to think about, but it's also almost scary from their perspective, because it's like, all right, we don't really have a playbook here. How do we go about this, and how do we get it right?
Very rare. We have not seen this very much. You're right. If you're changing a name, it usually means you're changing cities, which is starting some of the conspiracy theorists out there, Tyler.
Stop. I've listened to those theories. If I see the word Nashville one more time in another story that we post on our website or on Facebook, I'm going to snap. I
think they're here to stay. I
agree. I think anything's possible, but after what happened with the debacle of the Browns leaving and the laws that are in place now, and also the fact that Paul Dolan is a Clevelander.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Indians are not going anywhere, people. I know people love to have their crazy harebrained theories. That's not happening. They're going to be in Cleveland for a very long time, and I'm confident in that. And again, that's all I care about.
I hope this clip can't be used on Old Takes Exposed or anything like that. We're in trouble.
Look, if it can be, Nick, I will personally send it to the Old Takes Exposed Twitter account, and I will take the blame, because I'm the one pounding my fist on the table, saying they're not going anywhere. This is on me, buddy, and I will be the one to own up to it. But I'm confident that day will not come.
I like it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like you said, it's interesting because we don't have a timetable really. You mentioned it could come this summer. They could be the Cleveland Indians next season playing in 2022. So yeah, it is strange.
It is again, as we said, we're not used to this. It is fun to think about in a lot of ways. It's also kind of makes you anxious to think about, like, when are they just going to do it? But at the end of the day, I am keen and intrigued by what they will do. And I can't wait to see the result. I just want to, and we'll have our opinions then, I'm sure, when it comes out. But I'm very, very anxious to see what they end up deciding.
I can't wait to see people's reactions to this video.
Who's that Tyler kid? He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. All right.
It's fun. It is fun to talk about, though, for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time out of your of this beautiful Monday. Oh, beautiful. It's a bit of a rainy Monday, but thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak to me from your home in lovely, beautiful Twinsburg, Ohio. We're not going to discuss their record against the Comets on the football field. I don't think that is pertinent to this discussion.
Yes.
But what was that?
I said yes. Yeah, no, I'm with you. But we can't, on our next show together, we'll recommend some great establishments, some great restaurants down in Little Italy where you're at, because I've been quite a few times.
I am anxious. Trust me, I have my own. We know people down here. I have my own places that I love to frequent. Now and again, I would be all for that. But until then, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk about this ever important topic among the Cleveland sports world. For Nick Camino, I'm Tyler Carey for 3 News and WKYC.com. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.